So John and I here are watching a couple more of the Pathless Path's spree of videos tonight. There's been like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
And he was talking about radical empiricism and William James and this idea that there is a pure experience underlying our normal subject-object, or a normal experience divided into subject-object, at least in the West, with science and the rise of the scientific study of nature. There's been this tendency to assume, as Descartes did, that the mind, or the observing scientist, the rational intellect, is separate from the observed natural, mechanical realm.
Yeah.
And what the Pathless Path was saying was that no, there's a more fundamental, non-dual whole.
Yeah.
So
I think he was pointing more at oneness in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least what I got from it. But maybe he is
oneness instead of
actually to be distinct from non-dual.
Yeah.
Because oneness is kind of a dualistic term because it implies
it's leaving out
not oneness
or not oneness.
So,
yeah.
But that strikingly, if you do like the Venn diagram,
yeah,
you get the dualistic thing. It snuck its way back in.
Right. Just like, black and white. Like, what would black be unless there was a background of white somewhere to distinguish
exactly.
it?
And then that's why you talk about the non-dual symbol. The perfect one is the yin yang,
mm-hmm.
the white and the black, because you can see the dualistic side of thing, and the oneness actually would be the one that can connect them all in it. So I guess more emptiness of that's where everybody has. This is the common ground that he's pointing at.
Exactly.
And the forms of the different things, and people identifying with just those forms is wrong, is what Pathless Path is saying.
Right.
And we need to be more aware of emptiness, vast emptiness, spaceness. That's how we all are connected. But I think he's not very clear about non-dual would be emptiness is not other than form.
Right.
And
you gotta reverse it.
And that's when you recognize not only are there two different dances going on, or at least that I was aware of the form dance, and now I'm aware of the non-form dance. So I found out that form was illusory. Well, the form is illusory.
Right.
Only emptiness is real. Okay, well, that's 2 parts. There's a third part that I think you really need
to bring it back together.
Go back all the way. Emptiness is not other than form, and then you achieve the whole circle. So you see the outside of it.
The forms that arise in this mode of experience where subject and object are in opposition are not illusory. They're just a particular way that oneness can express itself.
Yeah.
Oneness divided. But there is no oneness really without the division.
Exactly.
It's only through recognizing the possibility of division that you become self-aware of the wholeness underlying it.
Yeah.
And so subject and object, or the scientific approach, can be useful, certainly. And we have to make use of it because we exist both in a finite way as a particular body in space and time, and in an infinite way as the larger system of which that body is a part.
Yeah, and I think that works with polarities. Like if you want to look at it embodied in the human species, the one human species where you see it embodied 2 different ways.
Right.
One is the female body, which almost encompasses a communal, relativistic form representation.
Yeah.
And then the autonomy and the agency and the standing back, the more objective
is the masculine.
And together
they produce a whole species.
A whole species, the oneness, and the recognition of that is the non-dual.
Right. Well, it requires the conflict between the two in order to produce the coherent whole of the species.
So if we're talking typologies here, actually the female embodiment and the feminine extension of that would represent oneness, because a communal oneness that, you hear the critique, the old cliche, men are pigs, women are sheep, herd mentality, the oneness of going with a herd kind of thing.
And men are stubborn and keep to themselves and kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's men are more like robotics if they take it the masculine too extreme. Right. And of course there's exceptions, because you can have more masculine women and more feminine men.
Of course. So later the Pathless Path brought up the ego and was emphasizing how so the Buddhist perspective on ego is that it's not real, that it should be dissolved, and that it should be transcended. So I think, but you can transcend without dissolving. Right?
That's right. That's right.
You can use the ego as the platform for further development of experience, but
A springboard for more complexity.
right.
You can springboard to the next higher springboard in a sense, and by higher I just mean more complex because it's on the shoulders of ego centrality that you can get to a more inclusive ethnocentric worldview, and then on those shoulders go to a more inclusive world-centric kind of view. But if you take out some of the complexity, it's like taking out a section of your building and all the complexity above it.
Yeah,
If you
collapse.
smash out a lower, more sturdy, I guess,
The foundation.
part of the foundation, then that we see what happens in the physical realm. Why wouldn't it happen in the metaphysical realm or the non-physical?
Right.
I think there's some
It's
parallels.
psychological. Well, it's the ego is maybe not an illusion, but it's not as real as more of a transpersonal state.
Yeah.
Maybe a deepening of your experience. So the self, the ego,
But it took the
Is it-
ego
to make that realization.
to even get on to the point where you could be aware that, oh, this ego's here, and what is it now that's aware of this ego?
Mhm.
And if there was no ego there, you wouldn't notice anything else. So you wouldn't have the awareness. In a sense, that same awareness. You
Right.
could be objectifying things.
Well, there wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, the ego is sort of the eye that emerges to allow an object to emerge. So, I mean, if you just generalize the term ego, or a more general term might be consciousness. You can have a non-egoic consciousness or a transpersonal consciousness.
I've heard the fairy sauce around the ego could be one of the greatest teachers. And if you get rid of the greatest teachers, then you get rid of
Maybe the only teacher. Right. If you're thinking,
interchangeably, I'd use that too.
yeah, if you're relating to an ego as if it were a teacher, or I mean, if you're relating to a teacher, you're necessarily creating or requiring that an ego exist, you as a student and they as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess your own ego would be the teacher of
Would be
your higher
greatest,
mind,
yeah.
or your deeper awareness. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. So, I think I've been enjoying the maps that Pathless has been drawing for us, and I think it's expressed right in his name there that the map is not the territory, the path is not the path.
Yeah.
So, yeah, radical empiricism is it's almost a Buddhist science where you take into consideration the origin of experience as non-dual, and what's derived from it is the subject-object particularity, which is not other than
Yeah.
the origin. But
I took from his position, and I don't know if you took this the same way, that he was kind of overstressing the territory and he was under
like
laying down the maps. And
yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with good maps and always updating and refining your maps of
definitely.
the territory of, say, well, we want better maps of Oakland so we can navigate faster and people know
You should
what's changing.
be prepared for your travels. Definitely.
Why wouldn't we want a better map of consciousness? And sure, this thing would be open-ended. We could edit it together and all work on it together. But
So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with conceptualizing or thinking or using the admittedly dualistic mind
yeah,
to come up with more productive ways, more pure ways of recognizing the unity.
yeah, I think you do have to be humble about it too. It's not confusing the map with the territories. How
The map making
Humility
is a
expressed.
work in progress. Right?
Yeah.
Constant revision.
So that's my only critique, if you even want to call it that. I would just say, don't throw out the maps. I mean, maps are okay, and as long as we're all working together
Yeah.
in a community to update these maps of consciousness.
The only reason we could even know about William James was if we read some of his conceptual thoughts and reconstructed the maps that he left for us. So to even have a conversation about this, we're already engaging in map making.
Symbolic map knowledge, in essence.
Yeah.
We need to kind of have
Well,
a system for that all to work together. And that's what maps do. They find how
Yeah.
things are working together. They point those out for the
they let you know what to do next. You
for a
know?
linear mind, a
Yeah.
pragmatic kind of.
It's almost. I mean, you can also think of doing philosophy or doing science as like you're producing a recipe, to lead someone along a certain development of experience, and so they reread the path that you have laid down, and hopefully it creates the same inner realization in them that they created.
That map that you had out helped them realize the territory that's been there all along faster.
So you
had such a good map.
You both stood in the same place and saw it from the same eyes, or at least closer to the same eyes.
And that brings about the bodhisattva to come back in, and how do I use the effective means? What do I do today to enlighten other sentient beings? Mm-hmm. And well, I think making better maps is a way to help enlighten other sentient beings.
Yeah, you share your perspective of the territory.
Leave it out.
Yeah.
And that phrase, that concept, that idea could go on the map too. Like, here's where you want to start now.
Yeah.
Just realize that, and go from there. Learn from my mistakes.
Right. Well, that's the thing about any map. It's never gonna recreate itself for whoever's looking at it. You have to participate in bringing it back to life.
Yeah.
You actually have to use it to get through the territory.
Yeah.
So you can never get rid of the territory by creating a map. You just face it in a new way.
Yeah, I think he's really aware of this territory and wants to make other people aware of that territory. But I just would not throw out map making that has proven to be effective in terms of, well, how do I know? Because I experienced it and I had to use maps to get it. And okay. Yeah, that does make a little sense. A little bit more awareness, or you can see more aspects of reality.
Well, we'll see. This will be an opening exchange with the Pathless Path about how he feels about where we're coming from. I like the question in the description box here. Who are you?
Who are you?
Hopefully we can make some headway on that one.
Yeah.
In subsequent.
Great channel, bro.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.